I have yet to release any care information about the American toad on this channel, and that's crazy because it's my favorite animal. That's all gonna change with this Wild Vivariums episode. Wellsboro, my male American toad, and Navi, my female American toad, are very large individuals, so they need a lot more to fill them up than the common American toad would. I like to use dubia roaches and European nightcrawlers from Josh's Frogs. These different invertebrates can be used as staple feeders, and they're very important to include in the diet of these American toads because it gives them the protein that they need and it helps them to stay big and strong. And they love nightcrawlers and dubia roaches. I also feed banded crickets from Josh's Frogs, and you could pick all three of them up for any frog, toad, or any reptile or amphibian that you own as well. They make fantastic feeder insects for any amphibian. The next point I want to talk about is a water feature, and this has been something that I've succeeded and failed at with multiple attempts. The water feature needs to be something that can be easily maintained, it can be drained with ease, and it's something that doesn't cause bacteria. As we'd seen, too much moisture can cause a bacterial infection, and we don't want that for our friends. So you can see the different iterations of this tank. I created a small water feature that the toads could hop down into whenever they wanted, and they can leave and go back to the land part whenever they pleased. The only problem with this is that I could tell it was starting to make the soil nasty and it was becoming a problem, and before it became a problem I decided to take the water feature out and go back to water bowls, and I'm happy that I did. The water bowls are easier to clean, which means I'm able to get them cleaner water at a faster rate. They get new water every 2 days and every day if I'm home. And of course that water is coming from the reverse osmosis system that we talked about in the last episode with the Grey Army. Check out that video after you're done here to learn more about the reverse osmosis system. As you can see, Wellsboro checking the temperature and humidity from the temperature and humidity sensor, it's a very important part of keeping these animals, because if you don't do it right and it's too humid, they can get a bacterial infection and there can be a lot of other problems. The plants can die and there can just be really bad situations that come out of that. Not humid enough and they can dry out and they can die. If the temperature's too hot, they can bake. If the temperature's too cold, then there can be problems with that. They could either try to go into brumation or they just become lazy and more problems can arise. Trying to keep it in a temperature range is what I found to be best. Same thing with humidity. But that's for another video at another time. These are 5 quick care tips on how to take care of your American toad. Hides and decor are very important parts to the American toad in captivity. As you can see Navi hanging out at the front of her hide, it's a very important aspect because it helps the animal to de-stress, have a place to go when they feel insecure, and also it looks pretty neat to have in the enclosure. You can get just about any hide as long as it's big enough for the animal to fit inside, and they'll love it. It doesn't have to be the sexiest thing that you find on Amazon or Petco, just as long as it's big enough for the animal to get inside and feel secure in hide. Those are the only things that you need to think of. Decor is something that's different. American toads are big, they like to dig, and they can be very destructive, even killing plants, like these guys are both responsible for whenever I zoom out in certain clips. I would highly recommend having the least amount of decorations or any type of things that are going to clutter floor space. American toads, at least Navi, Wellsboro, and Ace, love to move around. They're not lazy, they'll use the entire enclosure if I give them the chance. Even this 3-foot long enclosure feels like it's small sometimes with the way they move around to hunt and to explore. So I'd recommend less decorations, more floor space, and I recommend as large of a floor space as you can give them. As you can see, they go from the left side of the tank to the right side of the tank, to the back of the tank, to the front of the tank. So as much as you can give them is what they'll use most times. One of the most important things to think about with American toads is the substrate or the soil type that you're keeping them in, because American toads need to dig. They need to be able to dig down into the soil to feel secure. Just like having a good hide, they need to have moist soil, not too wet. If you put your hand to it and you can wring it out, that's typically too wet. But if you put your hand to it and it just feels damp, if you use like a paper towel and you can test this and actually see the paper towel getting slightly damp, that's how you know it's usually the perfect soil conditions. The soil moisture looks to be perfect. One more tip before we go. This is a bonus one, and this is one of my favorite things to do with the American toads, and that's target training. It's very easy. As you can see, I used the lid to one of the plastic containers that the black soldier flies came in, and I put them on top of it. This is the target that the animals are going to recognize where the food is going in. Any toad that I've ever worked with will quickly recognize that this is where the grubs and a lot of the slower moving prey goes into, and they just sit there and they hang out by it, and they just can't wait for you to drop something in. Whenever the American toads are able to figure out that this is the target, they usually sit by it and don't want to leave. This almost reminds me of trick or treat for kids, because it's the same concept. The kid comes to the front of the door, the kid looks at you and waits for you to drop off a tasty treat as they go on their way. No different here with the American toads waiting for you to drop off a tasty treat onto their plate, and then they go their way. It's awesome. It could also be an example of having dinner with your toads, because, like I just said, this could be like their dinner plate if you think about it. If you liked today's episode, you should consider subscribing, and you should also consider joining the Frog and Toad Facebook group, because we have so many different opportunities to connect keepers, hobbyists, and frog lovers all at once. To catch up with the Gray Army and learn how to care for eastern gray tree frogs, check out the video in the bottom right corner. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks.